Now, if you ask me, the Boston Massacre is one of the big pushing forward events of the American Revolution, and it's for a couple of reasons. First of all, there is death involved, and that makes everything bigger, right? It makes people pay attention. And then second of all, this event was publicized all over all the colonies. Everybody heard about this. And this really helped kind of push, again, this wedge between Britain and the colonies. Now, what happened during the Boston Massacre? Now, that in and of itself is a little bit of a mystery, exactly what happened. But the essence of it was that at this time in Boston, there were a lot of British troops staying there. Partly to enforce the laws, and partly, Britain said, to protect them from the Indians. But Boston didn't feel like they needed any protection, and they didn't really like these soldiers staying there. They kind of felt like they were babysitters there, and they didn't like that. So there was this kind of animosity between the British soldiers and the people that lived in Boston. They kind of didn't really get along. And besides that, they made them stay in their houses. They made them work, do things together, and they just didn't get along. Now, on the Boston Massacre, what happened was there was this group of Bostonians that kind of got together and began harassing the Boston soldiers. There's lots of different reports of exactly what happened. Some say that they threw snowballs at them. Some say that they had big clubs and were coming to beat them. Some say they even had guns. It's not clear exactly what happened, but it seems pretty clear that these Boston people were not being particularly nice to the soldiers. In fact, it seems pretty clear that they were trying to egg them on to some type of an action. Now, the Boston soldiers kind of sat back as much as they could, it seemed, and tried not to fight back, but there came a point where one of the soldiers, or more of the soldiers, we don't know exactly what happened, but they felt threatened enough that they began to fire on these colonists, and they began to shoot them. At the end of the aftermath of all this, 5 colonists were killed as a result of this event. The colonists really spun this story and said, oh, they just shot on us. We were poor unarmed colonists, and they shot on us and killed us. See how bad these British troops are? And the British troops are saying, but our lives were threatened. You were going to come with us with clubs and snowballs. You were going to kill us. They felt threatened enough to fire. And so there was kind of this battle of what exactly happened. Now, the soldiers that were involved in this were tried in court for murder. Interestingly enough, John Adams was actually their lawyer during this time. John Adams was their lawyer. And what happened was John Adams was a pretty good lawyer. And he seemed to think that these people were threatened, and he actually got these people acquitted. They were found not guilty. Well, that made the colonists even more mad, that they were found not guilty, that these people that had shot and killed the Boston people, it made them even more mad. So that made people mad. The fact that there were people killed made people mad. Also, Paul Revere, if you look on the timeline, there's the picture there of the people shooting. That's the actual picture from Paul Revere. Paul Revere made a carving picture of the event, and it was published in all the newspapers. So all the newspapers had this picture of British soldiers shooting at American colonists. That made the people more mad. Not only that, but the British people they knew that their soldiers got off, but they were afraid that the British soldiers would be framed for more things, that the people would egg the British soldiers on, the soldiers would do stuff, and then the soldiers would be found guilty and killed. So the British changed the law and said, well, if something happens in America, we're no longer going to let our soldiers be tried in American courts. We're going to bring them back and have them tried in British courts. Well, that made the colonists even more mad, because they felt like they were going to protect all the bad deeds of these British soldiers. So all these things just kind of really made the colonists mad and frustrated, and put this wedge between England and the colonists. And this was spread over everywhere. All the colonies knew about this. All the colonies knew the story. But especially in the New England area, Massachusetts, Boston, that colony, and the colonies right surrounding there. This really made them mad. And this is when they started talking pretty clearly about separating from England. This led to the First Continental Congress. We'll discuss that in the next one. But this Boston Massacre really, those who were like kind of mad at England already, boy, this really got their fire going, and they were furious and ready to leave and become their own country.